Good morning and welcome to the second webinar in our Greenberg series, jointly organized by REN Forum, the St. Gallen Forum for Management of Renewable Energies, as well as the Managing Climate Solutions Certificate Program at the University of St. Gallen. My name is Rolf Wüstenhagen, and together with my team here at the Chair for Management of Renewable Energies, it's a pleasure to welcome you back. Today, in today's webinar, we'll address a really important research area, which is the question about financial participation and the influence on social acceptance of wind power. And I'll hand it over to my colleague Elizabeth Côté now, who will be your host for today and introduce the theme and our speakers for today.
So thank you very much, Rolf, for a very warm welcome. I will now share my screen with everyone. So here we go. I am also delighted to be welcoming all of our participants today to the second edition of the Greenberg series webinar, which will focus, as Rolf mentioned, on community investment and social acceptance. The webinar is organized in collaboration with the EU-funded MISTRAL project. So MISTRAL is a project that aims to train a new generation of early stage researchers, or PhD candidates, if you will, in order to evaluate the complexity of social acceptance issue facing the deployment of renewable energy infrastructures. And in order to do so, it seeks to explore mainly how the community, market and social political dimensions of social acceptance are interacting between each other, and that at different scales. So the project brings together 15 PhD students who are located in 7 different beneficiary organizations, including, of course, the University of St. Gallen, as well as 16 partner organizations and many world-class experts. So I would like to share a very warm welcome to all of the MISTRAL participants who could join us today for this webinar. I'm very much looking forward to insightful presentations and interesting discussions. So today, as Rolf mentioned, we will explore the role of financial participation, financial citizen participation in enhancing the role of acceptance of renewable energy. The focus will be mainly on onshore wind energy in the case of Germany. I'm very happy to be able to host this webinar with my colleague Nina Schneider, who is also working at the chair of renewable energy management with Rolf Wüstenhagen. And together we are delighted to be able to welcome our speakers. So Josef Baur is founder and managing director at eueco. He basically advises utility companies, developer municipalities, and cooperative on the sustainable implementation of citizen co-investment in wind energy projects. We are also very excited to invite Josef Knauf, who is early stage researcher as part of the MISTRAL project, and whose research focus is on financial citizen participation and community acceptance in renewable. Just for your information, my colleague Nina and I also have the pleasure to be conducting our research work as part of the MISTRAL framework. So next, Josef Baur will be talking about the challenges and best practice associated with wind energy co-investment in the context of Germany. And this will be followed by a presentation from Jakob Knauf, who will present the latest results of a study he conducted, which focused on mainly preferences of local residents and local citizens for different benefit schemes. And this will eventually be followed by an interactive discussion. In case you have any questions or any comment during the presentation, I would invite you to please note them down in the question and answer box, which is located at the bottom of your computer. And my colleague Nina Schneider will be more than happy to raise your questions during the presentation. So now I will stop sharing my screen. Here we go. Josef, the floor is yours. I would now invite you to share your screen and to talk to us about co-investment in the case of Germany.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elizabeth, for introducing me. Just a second, I'll switch over to my screen, which you should see now, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, so thank you once again, Nina, for inviting me. And hello, everybody. I'm happy to have the chance to present you in this forum experiences from the German market in co-investments, challenges and best practices. Actually, a short introduction to my company or what we are doing and why I can tell you something about this topic. We actually started in 2012 a white label company for co-investments in the renewable energy area. And over the years, we collected a lot of experiences on the legal side, on the practical side, on the motivation of the different actors, mainly on the wind side. Nowadays, 70% of our customers are wind developers or utility companies who are developing wind projects. And therefore, we collected or we are administering over 350 co-investment projects. And from this pool of experience, I would like to share the insights with you. And therefore, I first of all will give you a short overview on the co-investment models in Germany. So from the legal side, what is possible here, what are the participation models which are working best or which are used best, and short view on the history of participation models as well on regional factors in Germany. Then best practices from our side nowadays, how to find the best or the most sustainable solution for developing wind projects together with co-investment and the people living in the area. And at the end, I'll bring the challenges we are facing, especially give a short outlook to the challenges we are facing around the new German EEG law, which introduces new rules. And all right. Okay, so first of all, I want to give you an overview of the legal models which are mainly used in Germany. So basically, theoretically, we have a lot of participation or funding models which could be used, but in practice, there are 3 left. Which are used on a daily basis. So first, so-called limited partnership model, or in German KG model, which actually brings or is bringing the people into an owner role for the project. So you are selling off part of your company to the people in the region. And main usage of this model is basically when you have huge participation volumes and you really want to have a lot of owners within your projects. The challenge there is the so-called prospectus from the German financial regulation, so-called BaFin. Setting up a so-called prospectus is quite demanding financially as well as time-wise. Second model, registered corporation in Germany as well, widely used. Basically meaning founding of a or using an existing registered corporation. And main benefit of the registered corporation is basically you don't have any bigger legal requirements concerning the co-founding model. That's the good part. The other thing is administration-wise, it is quite difficult, and you have as well special voting rights within the registered corporation. So therefore, this is as well not used as a standard model. So first 2 models, which both are ownership models, are actually nowadays not widely used, but they are more or less the exception. Finding a model that allows the developers and as well utility companies to share value add or share profit from the project. The best model nowadays is the so-called subordinated loan, which allows us to allow people to invest, not being an owner, but simply an investor, so co-funding. And you can set it up as well as a without a so-called prospectus. So that makes it quite easy and quite flexible. So you can promise fixed interest rate over a chosen duration. And that nowadays is the model that most of the developers and as well utility companies are using. So this is on the legal side. Short history of legal development. The reason why nowadays we are using the so-called prospectus-free subordinated loans, which is called crowd investment in Germany, is because over the years regulatory requirements have been changed substantially. So subordinated loans were not regulated till mid of 2015 or beginning of 2016. So it was easy to set them up without any prospectus and without any regulation. Then we introduced in Germany a new law, investor protection law, which introduced as well the rules for crowdfunding. And these crowdfunding rules nowadays, in combination with a subordinated loan, allow up to 6 million and up to 25,000 euros for each person, basically to invest without the prospectus. And that makes it quite attractive, together with the fact that you are not selling an ownership position in your company, but simply it's more or less like a loan. How it has developed over the years. So from starting of this new funding model, 2017, 2018, it became more and more popular, and nowadays it is really widely used. And therefore, I would say it's something like the standard model. What you have to have in mind is the co-funding model or the participation models in Germany basically are all voluntarily. So there is no law and no rule which forces you to offer that. But as a industry practice, nearly every one of the developers and as well of the utility providers always offer participation models, mainly to have an effect on acceptance. Main motivation for co-financing offers, you can see here, dependent on who is setting up the model. In wind, it's always acceptance first. So raising acceptance within the community where you raise the project, and dependent on whether you are just a developer or you're as well a utility company, you have things like customer loyalty, which can play a role in your motivation. And as well, if you are a developing company, competitive advantage with offering standardized models is as well something that plays a huge role. Then quick outlook on the map of Germany, and what we would like to show you here is from region to region, or the German federal states, basically you have different models which are popular there. In the north, it's really the ownership models, the limited partnership models, which are widely used. And in the middle of Germany, it's more the registered cooperatives. And in other areas, you have, mixed models which are there. What I would like to tell you there is basically, or what I would like to show you is, it's not only having or offering a model, but it's as well, what are the people in the region used to? What are they going to accept? And that is something you have to have in mind. And this shows you it's not scientific work what we have, but we took all our 350 administered co-funding models and checked what was the reason, or what was the model, and in which area was it, and therefore we have created that map, and should give you an idea that different region, different models. Okay, best practice, basically what we have developed over the years is early transparency when you're developing, when you have secured the land, using digital tools to continuously offer information. And what we have is the so-called qualified expression of interest, meaning that this expression of interest we normally do 6 months before the project is completed. So just to have an early view how many people would like to participate in co-funding models and in participation models. And based on that information, we are actually then offering the co-funding model. And this life cycle is basically what I would say nowadays best practice model, which addresses all or the different needs of the players involved. So the municipality, the people and investors, and as well the developer or utility companies. Okay, challenges. After reviewing the history of the last 8 years and looking forward, basically acceptance of wind projects in Germany is still a challenge. So what the government and as well the industry is still fighting with is that we have a lot of resistance against the project and a lot of demonstrations against the projects. So therefore, wide acceptance, we are far away from that. And this is not, I would say, there's no wider peace for the ongoing development of wind projects in Germany. Then the new EEG 2021 basically wants to address the topic acceptance and as well community participation and people participation. And that is as well, a challenge. It's at the moment, we have a second draft version, and by the end of the year, it should be ready. And exactly our topic, co-investment and as well acceptance, will be within the law. And now let's see which direction it goes. And another thing, or I would say a weak point of the co-investing models is what are you going to offer for non-investors, for people who don't have the money to invest? Yeah, how can you address acceptance issues there? And the fourth point, payments from municipalities. There is a trend, or we can even see it in the new law, that down payments from municipalities is something that the government would like to have as tool of acceptance. From our point of view, this needs to be discussed. And let's see where the new EEG 2021 law leads us. And yeah, that was my input, giving you an overview, giving you the history, short outlook, and therefore thank you very much for your attention. And Elizabeth, I'll give it back to you.
Thank you very much, Josef, for a very interesting presentation. It definitely raised a lot of questions on my hand, but I see also in the chat among our participants. Before we address these questions, however, I would suggest that we move on to the next presentation, which will be presented by Jakob Knauf, who will talk to us about preferences of residents and local citizens for different benefit schemes. So he will be presenting results of a recent survey he conducted. So Jakob, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Elizabeth, for this introduction. And also thank you very much, Josef, for your talk about co-investments. I'm going to talk about a second option of financial participation, and that are benefits. Josef already mentioned the changes in the German Renewable Energy Act. And at the moment, these mainly talk about benefits. So I did an analysis this August, and I asked people whether they like benefits at all and also what kind of benefits they preferred. So by the end of the talk, I want to answer the question, can you or can you not buy acceptance through benefits? From a theoretical point of view, there are two options possible that people like or dislike benefits. And on the right side, you can see the option where people like benefits, and that's basically what policymakers hope for. The idea behind it is that people think of a project and think about what are the cons and the pros of this project. For example, it's producing green energy, so it helps us to get rid of fossil fuels. It's probably increasing air quality because we don't have the coal power plant anymore. For some, it is even a side of for the future, so like of change, of positive change. And on top of these good attributes, we also have then the benefits. So people receive, for example, cheaper electricity, or the municipality receives some payments. So this then would result that people would more likely accept a wind project. But we also have another theory, which is the motivation crowding theory. And this is more concerned with the source of motivation. I just want to give you a quick example where we have the opposite effect, that financial participation or benefits had a negative effect on acceptance, and this is blood donation. Already some centuries ago, in some countries, the government tried to increase the number of people who give blood. And by doing, they thought that it's good to have benefits. But what they saw is that actually the number or the amount of blood decreased. And what people find out then afterwards in surveys is that people gave blood because they thought it's good. So they had a feeling, okay, giving blood, I help other people. It's much intrinsic motivation. And now when they receive payments, it got some sort of business model for them. And this destroyed this whole intrinsic motivation. And I can imagine that the same happens also for wind energy. For example, some people might support wind energy, as I said, because it's creating good energy. It's helping us to transition to a more sustainable future. And now you give these people money, and probably this can then destroy their motivation to support a project. That was the background of my study and the two theories. And you will see in the end which of these theories is more true or not. But clearly the politics and the policymakers hope for the right side to increase the acceptance through benefits. Josef already mentioned the changes in the German Renewable Energy Act. There is some history on this. I show you here some newspaper articles, but I want to draw your attention particular to the left, to the 2020 amendment of the German Renewable Energy Act, which should be come in place from next year on. The original draft, the first draft, Josef mentioned already the second draft. The first draft had mandatory payments of 0.1 to 0.2 cents per kilowatt hour to the local municipality and a discounted electricity tariff in it. So the project developer can pay on a voluntary basis or not pay, but offer residents cheaper electricity. In the second draft, this is now gone totally, the discounted tariff, and also the payments to the municipality are not mandatory anymore, but more voluntary, and also the height of the payment is not set, but is the government or the municipality and the project developer have to negotiate about this. In my study, I included both types of benefits, payments to the municipality, but also a discounted electricity tariff, and I analyzed whether this has a positive or negative effect. I did this through an online survey, which I conducted this year in August. I worked together with the Market Research Institute. They have a big among German residents, so they have a big panel about people. And I made sure that according to age, gender, and region, this is representative for German. My survey included almost 1,000 participants. So it's a quite huge sample, and the results hopefully are quite representative then for Germany. I used a choice experiment. This is a method used often in marketing to find out consumer behavior or preferences for certain products. In my case, people were asked to imagine that a wind energy project is built next to their house. But the details of this project are not clear yet. So there's still some place for for negotiation. And people are now asked about their preferences. So the local government want to find out what kind of projects do they prefer. And here you can see a choice situation. So people were asked, which of these three options do you prefer? These options vary in the number of turbines, the distance between homes and turbines, also what kind of benefit is used, who is developing the project, and also where's the project located. But people didn't not only see one of these options. In total, they saw 8 of these choice tasks, and through their selection of the choices, it's possible to calculate what kind of attribute is most important. So is number of turbines most important? Are benefits most important? Or is it, for example, location? And it's also possible to calculate which level has the highest utility. For example, is it 3 wind turbines? Is it 7, 11, or 15 turbines? On the next pages, I'm going to show you the results. And I'm in particular focusing, as our topic today is financial participation, I focus on benefits. So my results show that most important for people in my survey, at least, was location. That most of the choices are based on this attribute. In the second place, distance. In the third place, we see benefits. So it's not the most important attribute, but it's still more important than, for example, the developer and the number of turbines. So I would say that's quite rather important and something to consider when you make policy about acceptance of wind energy. I went a little bit deeper into my data. You can still see the 5 attributes: number of turbines, distance, benefits, developer, and location on the top. And in addition, you see the different levels at the bottom. So for example, 3 to 15 wind turbines, distance from 500 to 2,000 meters. And on the benefit side, you see I chose the non option, which basically means people are not offered any financial participation. I had the social funds, which basically is a fund that where organizations profit from, for example, sport clubs, recreational organizations, environmental organizations. So the money would in this case would be distributed among the local projects. The third option is the municipal fund, which is basically the payments to the municipality, and the municipality can decide how to spend this money. And the fourth option is the cheaper electricity. So that's the discounted electricity tariff. You can see many different colors and lines. Basically, I did an analysis of the different segments because people's preferences are not the same. So I searched for groups where the preferences are quite similar. And I found here 5 groups where, for whom the different aspects are similar important. So for example, there's one group we can see on the left, which does not like have many wind turbines. But on the other hand, there's a group which likes to have even more wind turbines. So you see like their preferences are quite the same, but I will focus on the benefit side. And there you can see that for most of the segments, having the non-option, so having no financial participation, has a negative utility. And all other 3 options actually have compared a higher utility, except of this one segment, which is in yellow, or if there's a yellow-green, where having the non-option has a positive utility. So that's the only group where actually financial participation would maybe result not in a higher acceptance. But all other options, the social fund, the cheaper the municipal fund, and cheaper electricity is quite high. And on the first 2 places, it's really municipal fund. So payments to the municipality and the cheaper discounted electricity. Going a little bit more detailed into the segments, I asked at the beginning of my survey, what do you think about local energy or wind energy projects? And this segment, which does not like benefits that much, or also likes the non-option, has or shows the lowest average acceptance of wind turbines. So you won't win the hearts of the people who do not like wind energy very much with benefits. But for all other groups, somehow benefits seem to have a very positive effect. I showed you this at the beginning of my presentation. So which theory is, let's say, more true? It's not absolutely true, but which does apply even more, or applies best. And I would clearly say that on the right, we see that benefits in general have a high utility and might increase acceptance of a wind energy project. I'm coming now to the conclusion of my presentation. You won't scare away the people with benefits. The opposite is the case. Most people actually appreciate having them, except of this one segment I mentioned, which has the lowest acceptance level. So I would say the changes in the German Renewable Energy Act are likely to be effective, but that's valid for the first draft because there also electricity tariff was included. In the second draft, this is not the case anymore. I know it's from a regulatory perspective, it's difficult to have this discounted electricity tariffs in Germany, but I would rather focus on making this more practical so that you can really have these discounted electricity tariffs rather than just saying, yeah, well, it's too difficult to make, so we just don't use them. I'm now looking forward to the discussion and questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Jakob, for a very interesting and very topical presentation. It's interesting to see how your result seems to be a bit more aligned with the first draft of this Renewable Energy Act that was proposed a couple of weeks ago, and less so with the second version that we saw emerging last week. You talked about distributional justice and distributional justice theory as the basis of your paper. Perhaps I could start this interactive discussion section by addressing a question to you, and maybe Josef would want to intervene and comment on it afterwards. But very often in the academic literature, social acceptance as a concept is associated with active citizen participation, but citizen participation under two forms, so procedural participation as well as financial participation. Do you think that the changes that are proposed by this Renewable Energy Act, those potential or voluntary direct payment to municipality, are sufficient in order to enhance citizen participation in renewable energy deployment in the case of Germany? And if not, what would be required, according to you, in order to foster a greater level of citizen participation in this case?
Yeah, I think if you have a look at these two main, I would say, layers of acceptance. So we have the procedural side and we have the financial side. From the financial perspective, it clearly looks like that benefits increases acceptance. But when you look at how people are then participated in it, then probably the changes in the new law are quite good, because there the municipality can actually, or the people can actually negotiate about how high are the payments to the municipality. And then these negotiations or the financial benefits, they then become part of the procedure. And you can use actually this to negotiate what kind of benefits do we use. But I would also say we have to include then also co-investment, because that's another option. And we have to make it possible for the local people to negotiate really what they want and to open. So, and then by this, open this possibility to argue about it makes also the procedural aspects much stronger.
That's quite interesting. Yes, so this negotiation process of those levels of benefits that the developer would provide to a municipality would be, in your view, a good opportunity for citizens and local stakeholders to get involved in the process and then participate within the design of the development of the project. Perhaps Josef, do you have any comments or any insight on these questions? Josef, you're muted.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So actually,
yes.
what we saw over the years is, if I say from 2012 on, so we were living simply with voluntary models. And basically there was no, law forcing the developers to participate the municipalities and the people as well. It led to more or less a standard voluntary offer of participation models, and that was, I would say, still not sufficient. And therefore, an initiative from the legal side to address the same absolutely makes sense, because we are facing the challenge that we need more wind turbines throughout the country, and the not in my backyard movements are everywhere. So basically the question now is, how do the lawmakers address the same? And what we can see from the first draft, and now we have the government draft of the new law, there is quite a change. And what it shows to me, they are quite unsure how to address it, because the first one was, okay, we have a mandatory payment to the municipality, and for the people we have cheaper electricity. And this all disappears in the second draft where we are now. So we have only voluntary payment to the municipality, and the cheaper electricity disappears. So I was asking, for some backgrounds, what is the reason? And what I got back is the cheaper energy model is basically in the German energy design market. It is much too complicated to being a success. And, gifting, or more or less mandatorily gifting money to the community raises as well, from my point of view, only or could raise some concerns. Yeah, it could help in acceptance, but it raises as well concerns. What are they doing with the money? Yeah, and you still have nothing for the individual people. Yeah, and basically, our experience is you need to have a relation between the project or the windmills and the people, and the two main possibilities to have a relation is I'm profiting from the windmill directly, for example, through an investment, or it delivers me direct clean energy. And this delivery of direct clean energy is in the current energy market design is not possible. And therefore, these are the challenging and the remaining challenges. So what we can see now, we are in a process, and let's see where we stand at the end of the year, whether we get something like a mandatory solution. With the draft we are having now on the table, nothing has changed to situation how it was before.
Thank you for your reply. So what I gather from what you're suggesting is that these energy market rules are basically barriers in order to implement the second segment of what was proposed initially in the Renewable Energy Act, these discounted energy supply tariff for local residents. And also, from my understanding of your reply, this participation is something that was bottom up already before the implementation of those rules. So for you, this idea of financial participation and also procedural participation is already emerging, despite the fact that there's no top-down rule that imposes it. Perhaps I see there are lots of questions being raised now in the chat box from our participants. So Nina, would you like to maybe raise one of them to one of our speakers?
Yes, of course. So thank you all for your interesting questions. We received many. I will start with a question to Josef. I received 2 questions about the differences in co-investment models on the regional level in Germany. So how do you explain the regional differences in co-investment models, and how have the different models established themselves in these different regions? And related to it, can you see differences in levels of acceptance in these regions related to the co-investment models?
Yeah, starting with the first question. basically the reason why there are different models is a little bit historic. The building of windmills started in northern Germany because there you have more wind than in southern Germany. And from the beginning, they started even at the end of the 90s, the so-called ownership models. Yeah, and they're saying, okay, we are giving our land, but all the people should be owners of the windmills as well. So therefore, the reason why in the north it's quite popular is historically because they developed this model and they started with that. Going further south, you have the situation that the people there is enough money to invest nowadays, but bringing people into an ownership role, they are not used to it. So they are, looking for easier models to participate, and therefore, in different areas we have seen different developments. So the classical ownership model is really more in the north. And in the south, you have mixed models and you have the registered cooperatives models. So that is the main reason for that. And seeing a difference in acceptance, I would say, yeah, that we have in the northern part of Germany where, this was a grassroots movement, and bringing all the people into an ownership role was basically brings, to say it very simple, the best level of acceptance. Yeah. Whereas where you're in a region where people don't have so much money to invest, yeah, then it's better offering a model than not offering a model. But you don't have the possibility to raise the acceptance level to that degree where we have it in northern Germany. So.
Thank you, Josef, for the answer. Yeah, I think that answers the question very well. Thank you also, Nina, for raising initially the question. I have another interrogation with regards to the newest development of the Renewable Energy Act, perhaps towards Jakob, since you talked about or precised the first draft that included the benefit and then the discounted energy supplies, and now those latest development which are making on a voluntary basis, allowing developer to offer annual payment for to municipalities where the project are sitting. From my understanding, some observer raised great concern with regards to this specific benefit scheme with regards to 2 points. So the first one, the lack of understanding or guidance of how this money will be used by municipality, and also the lack of consideration of potential surrounding municipality or citizens that could be impacted by the project. For instance, an example of a case where a project is located right at the border between two different municipalities. So my question, do you think that those concerns are justified? If so, what could be a better way, according to you, in order to ensure a fairer distribution of benefits among people?
I mean, the problem that, for example, these boundaries, that's something we see already in Germany when a new wind project is built and you have a consultation process going on, that people, for example, from the neighboring municipality are not included in this, and this is creating some tensions between the different municipalities, villages, people, and I think that's really something you should consider. And there are examples also where the states in Germany try to address this in the past. For example, they worked on the distance between like the border of the municipality and the wind turbine, and if like the wind project is very close at the border, and let's say less than 1 kilometer away from the other municipality, then I would think it would be really worth considering to include this other municipality. Otherwise, this can really create some tension. Concerning the second aspect about how to use the money, we see in Ireland, for example, that people like to choose also about what to do with this. And there are arguments on both sides if you don't control the local government, then they can spend the money on what they do. But usually there are elections, and people really require that the government or the local municipality argues what they do with the money. So I think it's good to leave it to them, and that's also something that we see in Ireland, where you can see both, on the one hand, benefits that are set for a certain purpose, and also benefits where the municipality can decide, and generally the people there like it better when they can, because on the local level they usually know better what to do or where they need the money. So I would rather recommend leaving this open.
So you see this basically as an opportunity for citizens to participate in and collectively decide how this money will be invested within community or within the municipality, or providing within opportunities. That seems to make a lot of sense. And yes, this idea of transboundary issues and only one municipality benefiting can, I would foresee this as something that could be could raise conflict in some instance, and yes, perhaps there is an opportunity also to learn from other projects or other regions where they are using the perimeter around the project itself rather than municipal boundary as references. Thank you for your answer. Nina, I see that there are more questions also from participants, so would you like to perhaps raise another one?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
We have questions also related to trust, so the importance of trust. On the one hand, in regards to the wind developers, so how important is it that they are trusted? And do you think there is a need for facilitators? And then also, what role does generalized kind of trust in terms of trusting in institutions play in regards to the acceptance levels of people? And it was raised to both of you.
Perhaps, Josef, would you like to start first?
Yeah, basically trust, and I can connect that with the experiences on the co-investment of different developers and as well utility companies. Basically, what we really can see, if you have a developer which is known in the area, comes from the area, and develops a project there, and best case as well, it's a utility companies from the region who is developing the wind project. You can a little bit see the trust level on the offered interest rates. Yeah, so basically you have for utility companies offering financial participation models around 2% per year interest rate, which they can issue and which basically is accepted by the people and is sold out as well. And if it is an unknown, I would say, small developer from somewhere out of the region or not from the region, from a different region, then you see the interest rate changing in a direction 4% or more. So that is something I would say, or that is my observation on the trust side. It plays a huge role how it is accepted, and you see it as well. You see as well price signals through the interest rate. Now, second question, I think it's more for Jakob.
Can you repeat the second question, please?
Yes, the second one was, what role do you think a generalized kind of trust in institutions plays in people's acceptance of wind projects? For instance, change to the immediate environment.
So what at least my study showed is that the project developer plays a role, but it was not on the first place. So what we have to keep in mind is then this was a very static view on this. So people just had to imagine there's a project, and at first what comes into their mind is probably most important, and then this was not the project developer. It plays a role, but not so much. And then when the project is then announced, people start talking to their neighbors, to their friends, and think more deeply about it, sleep one night, and the next day think about it again. And then what we see in practice is that indeed the project developer, that's also, or institutions play then a great role. And when you talk about people, also it's it's trust again, I would say, because it's like the trust to the government, to the mayor, for example, and also the relationship in between them plays then a crucial role. I don't have the inside data on this right now, but at least institutions and how the trust is, it's quite crucial when it comes then to the negotiation and to like in the process when the dynamics unfold.
Thank you, Jakob, for your input. Trust is indeed a very important topic when it comes to social acceptance. Josef, I would like to maybe go back to one insight that struck me within your presentation. You said, or from my understanding, you mentioned that one of the weakness of renewable energy co-investments or citizen participation in these type of model can very often be the fact that these type of participation model are usually targeted or enable mainly individuals that are capable, that can afford and that are willing to invest in renewable energy project. And this may create discrepancies and also conflicts among people and jealousy. With this in mind, how can you, what do you think can be done in order to ensure that citizens that cannot financially participate in project can still benefit from its return or from its outcomes? What could be done around this?
So basically, there are two ways to ensure benefits for non-investors, and we have seen that in the law as well. It's through the municipality, so giving payment to the municipality, and they use it for the benefit of all the people. And the second one is offering cheaper electricity. Yeah. And the second option, it's not practical at the moment in Germany and in the energy market design. So it's or having special tariffs and very cheap tariffs for the people living in the area, it's practically not possible at the moment. Yeah. So that option, for helping or benefiting non-investors is not really working, and this remaining option through the municipality or through the community itself, then is the question, how does the benefit reach the individual persons? What are they doing with the money they are receiving? And because of the federal law, it is not at the moment possible to give the payment a narrative or saying, okay, you only use it for your kindergartens or for your infrastructure or your road or something like that. So therefore, there's a high possibility that the money disappears. Yeah, disappears in the household of the municipality, and therefore that is this, I would say, the second challenge we are facing. But I see, okay, for non-investors, these are the two possibilities: cheaper electricity, or through the municipality. These are the two ways.
So from my understanding, it would be a combination. So fostering or allowing co-investment, but also ensuring that benefit can be channeled through the municipality or through cheaper electricity tariffs. But then again, through the municipality with precaution on transparency and ensuring that there's good communication. And as we discussed a little bit with Jakob a little bit earlier, or what Jakob suggested is that it would be a good opportunity for citizens to participate and collectively decide how this money would be spent on a municipal level. That's good food for thoughts. Thank you. Nina, do you have more questions from our participants?
Yes, there are more. So maybe one for Jakob. One question was, how did you determine the different segments of your sample? What indicators did you use to construct these segments? Income, age, gender, location was mentioned as.
No, the only thing that was important for the segments is like their choices they made in this experiment I showed you. So basically, these segments made similar choices based on their preferences for certain attributes and also for the utility of these levels. So the segments are similar in terms not of any demographic aspects, but in terms of the choices they made, which projects they preferred.
Thank you, Jakob, for the clarification. I would just like to be mindful of the time now, and I believe that we are coming to a close to our webinar. Perhaps I could raise a last question, would open up the way for the future, and I would like to address this question to both Jakob and Josef. So last year in 2019, we saw the lowest level of wind energy install capacity in Germany since the introduction of the Renewable Energy Act more than 2 decades ago. And additionally, states are currently managing or trying to manage an unprecedented crisis of this pandemic, so COVID-19. What do you foresee as being the short and midterm challenge of the COVID-19 on the German wind energy market, given that it already exhibited signs of struggle before the pandemic? And what could this imply in terms of citizen participation in the energy transition in the long run? So perhaps, Josef, maybe you would like to start?
Yeah, so see the crisis we've seen last year that had different reasons in Germany. So basically the framework conditions and the requirements for wind developers and as well the duration for developing such projects. So the framework conditions were not so good, and combined with the not in my backyard movements brought a lot of law cases, and therefore it slowed down, and they didn't get the allowances for that. Having a look on influence of the COVID-19, I won't say it brings the industry or the wind industry further down. Because it's triggered through different mechanisms. It's I would say the legal framework they are having, and as well how much land they could actually use for the upcoming wind projects. I think what could change, or what could be an impulse, is in the people's mind, thinking about sustainable energy, renewable energy, being independent from fossil fuels. And I think this COVID-19 crisis showed in certain areas or certain edges that we are not always living in a sustainable way, or in a lot of areas. And probably what I expect is that people are more open to renewable energies and said, okay, this is more sustainable than all the other energy sources, and therefore I think it will strengthen it a little bit from that side.
Thank you. That's a rather positive outlook in a sense. So no direct effect or major effect on the wind energy sector, and on the other hand, actually raising awareness of people and habits, and perhaps prompting this transition towards renewable. Jakob, do you have any comments on this question or any additional inputs?
I would really agree on what Josef said. So I compare what people were interested in my topic when I introduced that I do research about acceptance on renewable energies before COVID and now, and the interest of people is still very much the same. So although we have this urgency now of managing this health crisis, the interest in renewable energies is still very high. And I think also that people get a sense of that the way how we are living at the moment is probably not the most sustainable way, and that we need to change. And I hope that this also leads then to the conclusion that we need more wind energy in order to do so. So I think from a long term, we won't have any negative effect, maybe a positive.
Thank you, Jakob, for your positive word, following a little bit what Josef had initially said. We are now coming to a close, so I would like to thank both Josef Baur and Jakob Knauf for a very insightful presentation first, and also a discussion session. I will now quickly share my slides. So I would also like to thank all of the participants for joining us today. Special shout out to all of the Mistral participants who could make it. This discussion was very interesting in my perspective, and I look very much forward to also follow the latest development of the Renewable Energy Act that should be put into application or come into law in January next year. I would like to also welcome all of the participants again next Friday for the next webinar. So the series is pursuing. We will have a webinar next Friday, which will look at emotion and wind power. In 2 weeks, we will have another webinar organized by 2 colleagues of mine about alpine solar power. And then lastly, in 3 weeks, we will have our last webinar. We would be looking at clean mobility solutions. So again, thank you very much, everyone. And I would like to wish you a very great weekend. Thank you.